12 men in black suits guarded her apartment. "You're under my protection," said the mafia boss. My feet were the first to surrender. The ache started as a low thrum in my heels around 10 o'clock, just after the dinner rush, and by midnight it had blossomed into a full-scale rebellion, a sharp, screaming protest that radiated straight up my spine. I was a nursing student. I knew the anatomy of my own misery, the plantar fascia pulling taut, the metatarsals grinding. I also knew the cure, sleep, which was still at least 2 miles and one very long walk away. I worked 2 jobs, or rather, I had one job at the Elbridge Bean that consumed the hours of 2, and one full-time course load at Elbridge Community College that felt like a career in itself. I was 23, and I already felt ancient. This part of Elbridge wasn't the one they put on postcards. This was the part with rusted fire escapes zigzagging down tenement brick, where the sirens provided a constant, weeping soundtrack and the air smelled of stale river water and exhaust. My neighborhood. I lived on the 4th floor of a walk-up that always smelled like boiled cabbage and someone else's cigarettes. The cafe closed at midnight. I'd spent the last hour wiping down the espresso machine until it gleamed, mopping the checkerboard floor until my arms shook, and listening to my boss, Stan, complain about the cost of whole milk. By the time I pushed the heavy glass door open and felt the damp, cold night air hit my face, I was hollow. My backpack felt like it was loaded with bricks. It basically was. My anatomy and physiology textbook alone weighed 8 pounds. I hitched it higher on my shoulders, the canvas straps digging into my jacket, and started the walk home. The streets were quiet, slick with a fine mist that made the lampposts glow with fuzzy, jaundiced halos. My building was 12 blocks north. 12 blocks of listening to the click-clack of my own worn-out boots on the pavement, of keeping my head down and my keys woven between my fingers. A trick I'd learned night 1. I was tired. So tired. That's the only reason I did it. The alley between 9th and 10th was a shortcut. Everyone said not to take it. It was dark, narrow, and smelled of grease from the back door of the Chinese restaurant. But tonight, it represented shaving 3 minutes off my walk, 3 minutes closer to my lumpy futon. I slipped into the narrow canyon of brick. My footsteps immediately deadened, swallowed by the oppressive dark. Halfway down, the only light came from a single, flickering bulb above a steel door. That's when I heard it. Not a gunshot, not a scream. A sound like a wet cough, followed by a thick, heavy thud, like a side of beef being dropped onto concrete. I froze, every nerve ending, dormant from exhaustion, suddenly caught fire. I pressed myself back, flattening my body against the cold, damp brick. I didn't breathe. There were men. 2 of them, maybe 3. They were silhouettes against the weak light, clustered around something on the ground. One man was on his knees, his head bowed. The other stood over him, arm raised. I couldn't see a weapon. I just saw the arm swing down. The sound was worse this time, a crack, wet and deep, that vibrated through the soles of my boots. The man on his knees didn't make a sound. He just folded. He collapsed onto the pavement like a marionette with its strings cut. My heart wasn't beating. It was a panicked bird trapped in my ribs, slamming itself against the cage. The man standing straightened up. He was big. He said something. His voice a low rumble I couldn't understand. The other man, the third one, laughed. It was a short, sharp bark. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in. Don't see me. Don't see me. Don't see me. I must have moved. My backpack shifted, and a metal buckle on the strap scraped against the brick. It was the quietest sound, a whisper. In the alley, the talking stopped. The laughter died. Dead. Absolute silence. I could feel them, turning, looking into the shadows where I stood, a statue of pure terror. My lungs burned for air. One of them took a step toward me. "Who's there?" His voice was gravel. That's what broke the spell. I didn't think, I just ran. I pushed off the wall and scrambled back the way I came, my boots sliding on the slick pavement. I fumbled for my keys as I ran. my hands numb and clumsy. My phone. I had my phone in my hand. It slipped. I heard the clatter of cheap plastic and glass hitting the asphalt behind me. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I burst out of the alley and onto the street, running, my lungs on fire, not looking back, expecting the sound of footsteps, a hand on my shoulder, another wet, cracking thud. But no one followed. I made it to my building. I fumbled with the lobby door, my fingers shaking so hard I couldn't get the key in the lock. I sobbed, a hysterical, strangled sound, and finally, the lock turned. I slammed the door shut, bolted it, and didn't stop running until I was inside my own apartment. The 3 deadbolts on my door slammed home. The chain rattled into place. I sank to the floor, my back against the door, and finally, I breathed. I was alive. I was safe. I had dropped my phone. The next morning, the sun came up, which felt like a personal insult. How could the world just continue? I hadn't slept. I'd sat in the shower until the water turned arctic, scrubbing my skin as if I could wash the memory of that sound away. I saw the alley when I closed my eyes, the slump of the man's shoulders, the finality of his collapse. I was supposed to open the cafe at 6. I put on my uniform, my hands moving on autopilot. My mind was a blank, static-filled void. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were bruised with exhaustion, my skin pale. I looked like a ghost. I couldn't call in sick. I needed the money. And besides, what would I say? Sorry, Stan, I can't steam milk today. I witnessed an execution. The cafe was empty when I arrived, save for Stan counting the register. He grunted at me, and I grunted back. I started the espresso machine. The roar of the grinder was a comfort. It was normal. For hours, I was fine. I was a machine. Small latte, 1 pump vanilla, extra hot cappuccino, skim milk. Do you have anything gluten-free? I smiled. I poured. I steamed. My hands were steady. Around 10, the morning rush slowed. I was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, a mechanical smile already on my face. Welcome to the Elbridge Bean. What can I... The words died in my throat. He didn't belong in our world of students and tired office workers. He was a violation. He wore a suit that was not black, but a shade of charcoal so dark it looked like smoke. It was tailored. It probably cost more than my entire nursing program. He was tall, with dark hair slicked back from his face, and he wasn't looking at the menu. He was looking at me. He moved to the counter, his movements economical and smooth. He wasn't loud. He was the opposite of loud. He was a black hole, absorbing all the light and sound in the room. Can I help you? My voice was a croak. He didn't smile. He reached inside his suit jacket. I flinched, my mind screaming gun, but he just pulled out my phone. My cheap, cracked screen Android. He placed it on the counter between us. You dropped this. I stared at it. I couldn't breathe. How? You should be more careful. His voice was low, with a slight accent I couldn't place. Not Italian, not Russian, something else. Elbridge. He slid the phone toward me. My eyes locked on his hand. His fingernails were clean, manicured. And then I saw it. Tucked between the cracked screen and the cheap plastic case, something was wedged. A coin. It was old, silver and heavy-looking, and it was stained. A dark, reddish-brown smear right across the face of it, dried and flaking in the shape of a thumbprint. I looked from the coin to his face. His eyes were dark, almost black, and they held no warmth at all. He knew. He knew I knew. This wasn't a kind stranger. This was a message. We know who you are. We know where you work. We have your phone. He nodded once, a gesture of finality. Have a good day. He turned and walked out. The bell chimed. I stood there, frozen for a full minute. Then I ripped off my apron, told Stan my appendix had burst, and ran out the door. I didn't care that he was screaming after me. I ran all the way home. I didn't call the police. My phone was a paperweight of terror on my kitchen table. I sat on my futon, knees drawn to my chest, and just shook. What did they want? If they wanted me dead, I'd be dead. The man in the suit could have killed me with his bare hands. I was a barista. He was something else. This was a warning. Stay quiet. I understood. I would be quiet. I would be a mouse. I would graduate, become a nurse, and get out of this city, and I would never, ever tell anyone what I saw. But the fear wouldn't let me go. It was a physical thing, a cold lump in my stomach. What if they changed their minds? The day bled away. The sun went down. My apartment, my tiny sanctuary, started to feel like a trap. The walls were too thin. The shadows in the corners were too deep. I had to do something. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial. I used my landline, a relic that came with the apartment. I dialed the Elbridge Police Department's non-emergency number. "Elbridge Police, please hold." The tinny hold music started. I almost hung up. A new voice, a bored-sounding woman, clicked on. "Elbridge dispatcher, what's your emergency?" It's not an emergency. Not really." My voice was a whisper. I want to report something, anonymously." "Ma'am, you'll have to speak up." I took a breath. I saw something, last night, in the alley off 9th Street. The line was silent for a beat. The boredness was gone. The alley off 9th. Her voice was flat. "Yes, a man. He was hurt. I think he was killed." "Describe what you saw." "It was dark. There were men, 2 or 3. One man was on the ground. They hit him." I was shaking again, the words tumbling out. "He fell. They just left him." Another pause, longer this time. I heard typing in the background. "And you're reporting this now, 24 hours later?" "I was scared," I whispered, frantic. "I didn't know what to do." "What's your name, ma'am?" I want to be anonymous." The dispatcher sighed. It was a cold, impatient sound. "Right, the alley. A man on the ground. Got it." Are you going to send someone?" "Too late." I frowned. "What do you mean, too late? You can still find evidence." "No, ma'am." Her voice was sharp, cutting. "It's too late for you. You've already been seen." Click. The dial tone buzzed in my ear, loud as a scream. I dropped the receiver. It swung on its cord, banging against the wall. "You've already been seen." It wasn't a warning. It was a confirmation. The police, the man in the suit, they were connected. The paranoia was so sudden and so total it almost knocked me off my feet. I was alone, completely, utterly alone. I don't know how long I stood there, listening to the dial tone, but a new sound snapped me out of it. The sound of an engine, idling. I crept to my window, the one that faced the street. My blinds were old and dusty. I pulled one of the slats apart, just a fraction of an inch. Down on the street, parked across from my building, was a black SUV. The windows were tinted so dark they looked like polished obsidian. It was just sitting there, waiting. My blood turned to ice. It was them, the killers. I stumbled back from the window, my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. They were here. They knew where I lived. The dispatcher, the phone, it was all a trap. I paced my tiny apartment like a caged animal, back and forth, kitchen to bathroom to kitchen. What could I do? Where could I go? I had no money, no car. My only family was an aunt in Arizona I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. I was trapped. The SUV didn't move. I checked every 5 minutes. The streetlights came on, casting its long, predatory shadow across the pavement. It was a patient hunter. Night fell. I sat in the dark, my front door barricaded with my only chair. It was a pathetic defense. Around 9 o'clock, the SUV's headlights flashed. My heart leaped into my throat, but it wasn't moving toward me. It was moving aside, because other cars were coming. Not one, not two, a fleet. 4 black sedans, silent as panthers, glided down my street. They parked in perfect, terrifying formation. 2 at the front of my building, 1 at the corner, 1 blocking the alley. Men got out. They weren't the men from the alley. They weren't thugs. They were professionals. They all wore identical black suits, white shirts, no ties. They moved with a silent, synchronized grace that was more terrifying than any open aggression. They didn't speak. They just took positions. 2 by the lobby door, 2 at the alley entrance, 2 at the street corner. The others, they just stood by the cars, their presence a suffocating weight. I counted them. 12. 12 men in black suits, guarding my apartment. Guarding, or surrounding. I was backing away from the window, my mind numb, when I heard the sound in the hallway. Footsteps, heavy, measured, coming up the stairs. They stopped outside my door. I didn't breathe. The chair was a joke. The deadbolts were paper. A knock. Not loud, just firm. 3 raps. Knock, 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 get. I scrambled back, pressing myself into the corner of my living room, grabbing a textbook, anatomy, a pathetic weapon. Isla Marin. A voice. Not from the alley, not the man from the cafe. This voice was different. It was deep, resonant, and coated in gravel. It wasn't shouting, it was speaking, and it cut right through the wood of the door. I said nothing. I know you are in there. The police will not help you. The men who want you dead are on their way. You have about 5 minutes. A pause. I am coming in. I brace myself for the sound of splintering wood, a gunshot. Instead, I heard the click of a key sliding into the lock. My top deadbolt, click, turn. The second deadbolt, click, turn. The third, click, turn. The chain. It just snapped, the metal screws ripping free from the cheap wood frame. The door swung open. He stood in the hallway, a silhouette against the dim yellow light. He was tall, broader than the man in the cafe. He didn't move. He just filled the doorway. He was a wall of black wool and barely contained power. He stepped inside, and the apartment seemed to shrink. He smelled of expensive cologne, cold night air, and something metallic, like iron. His eyes found me in the darkness. I couldn't see their color, only their intensity. He looked at the textbook in my hand. He looked at the chair. His lips twitched, but it wasn't a smile. Pack a bag. His voice was the one from the hall. An order. No, my voice was a terrified squeak. Get out of my apartment. He ignored me, and he took a step closer. I shrank back. You don't have time to be brave, he said, his voice soft. It was more frightening than if he had yelled. The men who are coming, they are not like me. They are sloppy. They will make it hurt, and they will not be quiet about it. Who are you? I demanded, my voice shaking. What do you want? My name is Dario Moretti. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, like it was supposed to, like it was the answer to everything. Pack a bag, he repeated, his patience clearly a finite resource, or I will take you without one. You are under my protection now. Protection? I laughed. It was a hysterical, broken sound. You have your men surrounding my building. You broke into my apartment. That's not protection, that's kidnapping. He sighed, a deep, heavy sound. He ran a hand over his dark hair. For the first time, he looked tired as I felt. You're right, he said, and the admission shocked me into silence. You don't know me. You have no reason to trust me, but you have every reason to fear what is coming for you. The men from the alley, are animals, he cut in, his voice hardening, and you saw them. You are a witness, a loose end. They will not let you live. He took another step. Your life is in danger, Miss Marin, because you witnessed something connected to me. This was it, the moment. I was a nursing student. I was trained to assess, to find the root cause. Why? I demanded, my voice finding a sliver of strength. You say I'm under your protection. Why? What do I have to do with you? You don't know me? I don't know you? Why me? He stopped. It was close now. Close enough I could see his eyes. They weren't black. They were a dark, flat brown, like wet earth, and they were filled with a profound, aching sadness. It was the last thing I expected. He looked at me, really looked at me, as if he was memorizing my face, as if he was deciding something. "You're right," he said again, his voice barely a whisper. "You deserve to know why. You deserve to know what life you're leaving behind." He took a breath. "The man they killed," he said, and his voice broke. "Just for a second. No, the man you saw murdered in that alley. He was my brother." The world tilted. The textbook fell from my numb fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud. It wasn't random. It wasn't wrong place, wrong time. It was family. Dario Moretti watched the book fall. He didn't look at me. He just nodded to the door. 5 minutes, pack. I was taken out of my building, a ghost in a sea of black suits. The men parted for us. I was put in the back of a car that smelled of leather and iron. Dario sat beside me, silent, staring out the window. We drove through the city, leaving my neighborhood behind. We went downtown to the glittering towers of glass and steel where I never went. We pulled into a subterranean garage, a private elevator. It opened directly into a penthouse. It was the biggest room I had ever been in. One entire wall was a window, looking down on Elbridge, the city I knew from the gutter. Now a carpet of sparkling diamonds at my feet. The furniture was white, the floor was marble. There was no dust, no clutter. It was beautiful. It was sterile. "You will be safe here," Dario said from the doorway. I turned. I was alone. He was gone. The door clicked shut. The sound of a heavy electronic lock sliding into place echoed in the silent, empty room. I was safe. I was a prisoner. The penthouse was a prison made of glass and silence. My first day, I paced. I walked the perimeter of the enormous, sterile living room, my bare feet silent on the cold marble floor. I counted my steps. 112 from the kitchen island, all gleaming white quartz and stainless steel, to the wall of windows that looked down on Elbridge. The city was a glittering, indifferent map of lights, a place I could see but never touch. My apartment, with its drafty windows and screaming radiator, would have fit in this living room 4 times over. The bedroom was larger than my entire nursing lab. The bed was a cloud of white linens with a thread count so high it felt like silk. The closet was filled, magically, with clothes in my size. Soft gray sweatpants, black tank tops, cashmere sweaters, all new, all without tags, all, I assumed, bought by one of the silent men in black suits. A man stood posted outside the private elevator. The only way in or out, he wasn't a guard, not in the uniformed sense. He was just there, part of the immaculate, terrifying furniture. He never spoke to me. If I approached, he would look through me. I was a ghost in someone else's life. The refrigerator was stocked with food I didn't recognize. Jars of olives stuffed with almonds. Strange, veiny cheeses, bottles of sparkling water. I missed my lumpy futon. I missed the smell of stale coffee and boiled cabbage. I missed my life, as small and as hard as it had been. On the 3rd day, Dario Moretti returned. I heard the ding of the elevator, a sound that made my stomach clench. He walked in, not like a visitor, but like the owner he was. He wore another perfect suit, this one a deep navy. He didn't have the men with him, the 12 shadows from my street. He was alone. "You are not eating," he said. It wasn't a question. I was on the sofa, knees to my chest. "I'm not hungry." He ignored this. He walked to the high-tech espresso machine, a sleek silver dragon, and it hissed to life for him. He didn't ask if I wanted any. He just stood there, his back to me, the cup in his hand. "You are safe here," he said, staring out the window. "I'm a prisoner." He turned. His dark eyes swept over me. "Prisoners do not have a view like this. Prisoners are not safe. You are." "What's the difference?" I shot back, my voice small. "I can't leave. I can't call anyone. You've erased me." He sipped his espresso. He considered my words. "You are a witness, Ila, to my brother's murder. The men who did it are still out there. They know you saw them. They know where you worked. They know where you lived. If I had not come, you would be dead. So what happens now? I whispered. Do I just live here forever until they find me? They will not find you. He said it with a finality that was absolute. And no, not forever, only until I find them. He finished his coffee, placed the tiny cup in the sink, and left. He came back the next day, and the day after that, it became a ritual. He would arrive around 4 in the afternoon. He would make an espresso. He would stand by the window, and he would talk. He didn't talk about his brother, not at first. He talked about the city. He pointed out buildings, the courthouse, where his father had been tried and acquitted, the old port, where his grandfather had first stepped off the boat. He spoke of his family not with love, but with a kind of resigned, weary gravity. He described power struggles like he was discussing a weather pattern, inevitable, dangerous, and cold. My family, he said one afternoon, his voice low, is not a family. It is a syndicate, a house built on bad ground. My father holds the foundation, but it is cracked, and my brother, Angelo, he was the only one trying to repair it. He was opening up in slivers. I was his confessor, a stranger, a priest in a confessional made of glass. I just listened. On the 5th day, he arrived carrying a paper bag. It was not a fancy, glossy bag. It was a brown paper bag from the Book Nook, the dusty, cramped used bookstore near my college. My heart did a painful, awkward flip. He set the bag on the marble island. These are yours. I approached it slowly. Inside, I found my anatomy and physiology textbook, my pharmacology binder, and a dog-eared paperback copy of a novel I had mentioned to a coworker at the cafe weeks ago. He had not just been watching me since the murder. He'd been watching me before. The thought sent a new, different kind of chill down my spine. How did you... I had your apartment cleared out, he said, as if discussing laundry. The men who are looking for you, they are not smart, but they are thorough. They would have gone there. I got there first. I pulled out the textbook. My notes were still tucked inside, my handwriting a dispatch from a life that no longer existed. Later that week, I was skipping meals again, the sterile food, the silent apartment. My appetite was gone. He arrived, and this time one of his men followed him in, carrying a large silver thermos. The man placed it on the counter and left. "What is this?" I asked. "Soup," he said. He unscrewed the top. Steam, rich with oregano and garlic, filled the kitchen. My grandmother's recipe. You are too thin. You look like a ghost. He poured it into a mug and handed it to me. I took it. It was hot, heavy, and real. I sipped. It was the best thing I had ever tasted. I drank the whole thing, standing there, his dark eyes watching my every move. I was getting used to his presence, his quiet. I was less afraid of him. He was a man drowning in his own world, and I was the piece of driftwood he had clung to. My frustration, however, was growing. The boredom was a living thing. I was a student. I was a worker. I was not built for this opulent stillness. "I cannot just sit here," I burst out one afternoon. I was pacing, my nerves frayed. "I'm going to go insane. My classes, no, my life, it's all just gone?" I was close to tears. A strand of hair, unwashed and wild, fell across my face. I went to push it back, but his hand was there first. He moved so quickly I didn't have time to flinch. His fingers, calloused and warm, brushed the hair from my cheek. His touch was feather-light, shockingly gentle. It lingered for a second, his thumb grazing my temple. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. His eyes were fixed on my face, his expression unreadable. He pulled his hand back, clenching it into a fist at his side. "You will be safe, Ela," he said, his voice lower than usual, a gravelly rumble. "I will not let them harm you." The elevator was not the only way out, I discovered. On the 7th day, a narrow staircase hidden behind a paneled wall. It led up. I emerged onto the roof, and my breath was stolen. It was a garden, in the sky, a secret. Green oasis of birch trees, climbing ivy and stone pathways, surrounded by a high glass wall that kept the wind at bay. The city noise was a distant hum. I went there every day. At sunset, the city lights would begin to glitter, and the glass walls would reflect the sky as it turned from apricot to deep violet. He found me there one evening. He just appeared, a dark shape on the stone path, his suit jacket off, his white shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked younger, almost human. "It's beautiful," I said quietly, gesturing to the city. He came to stand beside me at the glass wall. We were close. I could smell his cologne, that scent of iron and expensive soap. "My mother built this garden," he said, his voice soft. "She hated the city. She said she needed dirt. Something to remind her of where she came from. She died when I was 10. I looked at him, shocked by the sudden, raw peace of his past. "I'm sorry. My mom is gone, too." "I know," he said. "The car accident, 3 years ago." Of course he knew. He knew everything. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked, turning to face him. "This kindness, the books, the soup. This isn't just about your brother. You could have hidden me in a concrete room. Why, this?" He looked down at me. The golden light of the sunset caught the planes of his face, softening the hard lines of his jaw. "Angelo," he said, his voice thick. "He was the good one. He was trying to get out. He had a fiancée. He was talking about a life, a real one." He paused. "When I look at you, I see innocence. You are from a world he wanted, a world that is clean." The tension between us was a physical thing. It was a wire, pulled taut. He was so close. I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "I'm not clean," I whispered. "I saw what I saw." "You saw what they did," he corrected, his voice a low growl. "You are not like them. You are not like me." He lifted his hand, not to my hair, but to my face. His thumb brushed my jawline, a rough, warm texture against my skin. He was looking at my mouth. My heart was not a bird in my chest. It was a hammer. He leaned in. It was slow, agonizingly slow. I wasn't breathing. I didn't pull away. My eyes fluttered shut. His breath was warm on my lips. Then he tensed. He clenched his jaw, and the moment shattered. He pulled his hand away. Stepping back, the connection was broken. "It is getting cold," and he said, his voice all business. He turned away, the wall slamming back into place. "You should go inside." I fled. The next day, he was a different man. The softness from the garden was gone. He was cold, remote, and angry. He paced the penthouse, a caged lion. "We have nothing," he snarled, slamming his hand on the marble island. "The men you saw, they vanished. The trail is ice. Whoever hired them, they are smart." Hired them? This was not a street crime. This was an execution. He looked at me, his eyes sharp. "Angelo was investigating a mole, someone inside my organization, someone who wanted him out of the way, who wanted to break the foundation. He was getting close." I had been replaying that night in the alley, over and over, a loop of terror, the wet sound, the man on his knees, the one standing, the other one who laughed. "The man who laughed," I said, my voice barely audible. Dario stopped pacing. "What about him?" He moved after the sound." He put his hand on the other man's shoulder. My hands were shaking. There was a light above a steel door. It was flickering, but it caught his hand. Dario was completely still. His hand, what about his hand? "He was wearing a ring," I whispered. "A big one, I think, on his pinky." Dario took a step closer. His intensity was a physical weight. What kind of ring? "It was heavy, gold, and it had a head, an animal. I thought it was a lion's head. Maybe it had a crown?" Dario's face, which I'd only ever seen in shades of neutral, went completely white. It was a terrifying, stark absence of color. He didn't say thank you, and he didn't say another word. He just turned, his movements stiff, and walked to the elevator. He was gone before the ding finished echoing. I was alone for a full day, 24 hours of crushing, absolute silence. The knowledge of what I had done, what I had said, settled on me like a shroud. I had not just witnessed a murder, I had identified a killer. When he returned, he looked like he hadn't slept in a year. His suit was rumpled, his tie was gone, the top button of his shirt undone. He walked straight to the bar, a part of the penthouse I had never seen him use, and poured 3 fingers of amber liquid into a glass. He drank it in one motion. He set the glass down with a heavy thud. "Stefano Varelli," he said, his back to me. The name meant nothing. "He is a capo," Dario said, his voice hollow. "A captain. He was my father's friend. He was at my christening. He held me as a baby." He turned around, his eyes burning. "And his family crest is a lion with a crown." The implications of it hit me. This wasn't just a mole. This was a betrayal of the deepest, most profound kind. This was family turning on family. And I was the one who had pointed the finger. It was too much. The fear, the isolation, the guilt. It all came crashing down. I started to cry. Not the quiet, dignified tears of a movie heroine. I broke. A raw, ugly, gasping sob tore out of my throat. I collapsed onto one of the stupid, priceless white chairs, my body shaking. This is my fault," I choked out, the words tumbling over each other. "I saw it. I told you. Now you're going to kill him. Oh God, it's just more blood. It's more blood, and it's because of me." I was spiraling, hysterical. Dario was frozen for a second. He was a man of violence and control, and I was a mess of raw, uncontrolled emotion. He moved. He didn't pat my shoulder. He didn't offer me a tissue. He crossed the room in 2 strides, pulled me up from the chair, and hauled me against his chest. It was not a gentle hug. It was a hug of pure containment. He wrapped his arms around me, one hand pressing flat against my back, the other cradling the back of my head, pressing my face into the crisp cotton of his shirt. He was a wall. He was an anchor. He was shielding me from my own breakdown. "It is not your fault, Isla," he murmured, his voice a low rumble against my ear. His lips were in my hair. "This was set in motion long before you. This is not on you." I cried into his chest. I gripped his shirt, my fists bunching the expensive material. He just held me. He didn't shift. He didn't pull away. He just held. I could feel his heart beating under my cheek, a slow, steady, powerful rhythm, thump, thump, thump. It was the first time I had felt safe in I didn't know how long. The hug lingered, long after my sobs quieted down to shaky breaths. He didn't let go, and I didn't pull away. The dynamic had changed. The air was thick with unspoken things. That night, he didn't leave. I was on the massive sofa, staring at the wall-sized television, which was off. The silence was deafening. "I cannot do this," I said, my voice hoarse. "Sit in silence, not tonight." He found the remote, a sleek black wand, and turned on the screen. "What do you want to watch?" We found an old black and white movie, something simple. No guns, no blood. We sat, not touching, but close. The sofa was 12 feet long, but we were on the same cushion. I was in a tank top and the gray sweatpants, my uniform. I pulled my knees to my chest. He sat, his long legs stretched out, his posture deceptively relaxed. Halfway through the movie, he lifted his hand. I saw the movement from the corner of my eye. He rested his arm on the back of the sofa, behind my head. My skin prickled. Then, his fingers trailed, just a whisper-light touch. He brushed my bare shoulder. My skin erupted in goosebumps. It was not like the hug. The hug was comfort. This was a question. I flinched. I couldn't help it. I pulled away, just an inch, tucking myself tighter into a ball. His hand dropped. It was a sharp, sudden movement. The rejection was a physical thing in the air between us. I saw his jaw clench. I stammered, staring at the screen. I don't know. I don't know what this is. I'm your prisoner. You are not my prisoner, he said, his voice rough. You are my... He never finished the sentence. The sound was not a bang. It was a thwack, a sharp, angry noise, followed by an explosion of glass. The window, the massive floor-to-ceiling window 2 feet from my head, shattered. A spiderweb of cracks erupted from a single, neat hole. Time slowed to a crawl. Dario didn't shout. He didn't think. He moved. In the single second it took for the glass to finish cracking, he was across the sofa. He didn't as an American novelist. I've spent a lifetime, 100 years. It feels, writing the kinds of stories that get under your skin. My world is mafia romance, but not the flashy, hollow kind. I write the real stuff, the stories that feel like they're happening down the street, grounded in the grit and emotion of American life. My style is vivid, authentic. It's meant to hook you, to hold you, until the very last word. I've memorized the outline you provided. It's a strong one. 12 men in black suits guarded her apartment. You're under my protection, said the mafia boss. It has all the elements, the innocent girl, the haunted boss, the collision of 2 worlds. This is the foundation. I'll treat it as our blueprint. Every request you make, I'll build from this structure. Brick by brick, scene by scene. My writing will follow your rules. The passionate scenes will be real, detailed, focused on the emotion, the body language, the unspoken things, but they will always be clean, safe for any audience. No advertiser-friendly lines will be crossed, and, to be absolutely clear, no child abuse, no harm to children. Action scenes will be tense, but never gratuitous. The writing will be pure narrative. No icons, no special characters, no hashtags, no asterisks, no meta-commentary, no placeholders, no winking at the audience, no stuttering or filler phrases, just the story, as it happens. I understand the outline perfectly. Aslamaran, the nursing student, Dario Moretti, the boss, the murder of his brother, the blood-stained coin, the penthouse prison, the hunt for the traitor, Stefano Varelli, the slow, dangerous burn of their connection, the kidnapping, the final confrontation, and the quiet, hard-won peace. I have it all. I'm ready to write. Wait for my command. I'll be here when you are. Tackles her. His body, a solid wall of muscle, slams into me, shielding me completely. He tucks my head under his chin and rolls us both off the sofa. We land hard on the marble floor, behind the solid base of the couch. Glass rains down on us, tiny, sharp, glittering pebbles. Don't move, he hisses into my ear. His entire body is rigid, covering mine. He's holding me so tight I can't breathe. The elevator dings, shouts from the hallway, his men. But all I know is the solid, warm weight of him, the smell of his cologne and the sudden, sharp, metallic scent of gunpowder. He is a shield, and he did not hesitate for a second. The world exploded in a spray of diamond-like shards and a high-pitched whine. Dario was a solid, crushing weight on top of me, his body a living shield. His hand was clamped over the back of my head, forcing my face into his shoulder, and his breath was hot in my ear. Don't move, don't speak. My body was rigid, paralyzed by the sudden violence. Glass, fine as sand, rained down on my back. The marble floor was biting and cold beneath my cheek. Clear! The voice came from the elevator, sharp and professional. Footsteps, heavy and fast, pounded into the room. Dario didn't move. He remained a dead weight, pinning me, protecting me. Boss, clear! Status? Dario's voice was a low growl, muffled by my hair. Sniper, rooftop, northwest, opposite building. Our man is on him. A pause. A single, muffled pop from far away. Target is neutralized. Repeat. Target is neutralized. Only then did he move. He rolled off me in one fluid, powerful motion, rising to a crouch. He was a creature of pure, coiled energy. His eyes were not on me, but on the gaping, jagged hole in his perfect window. the cold night air already rushing in. "Ours or theirs?" Dario snapped. "Ours. Our man got him. The shooter is dead." Dario stood up. He looked at the shattered glass, the bullet hole. He looked at me, cowering on the floor, and his face was a mask of cold, controlled fury I had not seen before. This was not the man who had almost kissed me on the roof. This was the man who had a brother murdered in an alley. "They knew the room," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "They knew the window. They knew exactly where she would be sitting. The leak wasn't just a leak, it was a flood. Stefano Varelli wasn't just a traitor, he was inside the walls." Dario turned to me. He didn't offer a hand, he just watched me scramble to my feet, my legs shaking so hard I could barely stand. "Get your bag," he said. What?" "The bag you packed when you came here, get it. We are leaving. Now." This time, the car ride was not a short trip across town. We left the glittering prison of the penthouse, flanked by 2 other black sedans, and drove. We drove out of Elbridge, past the suburbs, past the point where the streetlights gave way to long, dark stretches of highway. Dario sat beside me, silent. He was a statue of rage. He stared out the window, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. I was too afraid to speak. The air in the car was thick with his anger, and with the unspoken fact that I was the target. They were not trying to silence a witness anymore. They were trying to hurt him by killing me. After 2 hours, we turned off the highway onto a smaller road and then onto a narrow, unpaved lane shrouded by trees. The gravel crunched under the tires. The headlights cut through a thick fog, and then a house emerged from the mist. It wasn't a modern fortress like the penthouse. It was an old stone estate, covered in ivy, with chimneys that spiraled up into the dark sky. It looked like something from a painting, solid and permanent. The cars stopped. A man and a woman, both in their 60s, stood on the porch, waiting. Dario got out and opened my door. "This was my grandmother's," he said, his voice softer, the anger replaced by a deep weariness. "She died here." He walked me to the steps. The woman, who had a kind, wrinkled face and sharp, intelligent eyes, nodded. "Signore?" "Sophia, this is Isla. She is a guest." He turned to me. The cold night air whipped his hair around his face. "No one will find you here. Stefano doesn't know this place exists. It is not in my name. It is not in any name he knows." He looked at me, and his eyes were dark, pained. "Not even me. Unless you want me to." He was giving me a choice. He was giving me the key. "Dario." I started, but I didn't know what to say. He just nodded, a sharp, curt gesture. He turned, got back in his car, and the fleet of black sedans disappeared back down the gravel road, leaving me in the fog with 2 strangers. The penthouse was a cage. The estate was a sanctuary. Sophia showed me to a room on the 2nd floor. It had a real bed, made of dark, carved wood, and a fireplace. The floors were covered in thick, worn rugs. It smelled of lavender and wood smoke. "You are safe here, Signorina," Sophia said, her voice warm. Her husband, Rico, was a man of few words, but his presence was a quiet, stable guard. They lived in a small cottage on the property. I was truly alone in the main house. For the first time in weeks, I slept. I slept for 12 straight hours, a deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke up, the world was quiet. There were no sirens, no distant traffic, just the sound of birds and the rustling of leaves. I spent the next few days exploring. The house was full of ghosts, but they were kind ones. There was a library with floor-to-ceiling shelves, filled with old books bound in leather. There was a garden, overgrown and wild, but beautiful. I was safe, but I was adrift. I had been defined by my fear, and then by my role as Dario's protected witness. Now, I was just Ila, and I had no idea who that was. One rainy afternoon, I found the attic. It was dusty, filled with furniture draped in white sheets. In the corner, under a round, rain-streaked window, was an easel. A wooden box sat beside it, full of dried-up tubes of paint and stiff, ruined brushes. A canvas was on the easel, unfinished. It was a painting of the garden, surprisingly good. I touched the canvas. My fingers came away with dust. I hadn't painted since my mother died. It was our thing. We would spend Sundays in the park, our fingers stained with cerulean blue and cadmium yellow. After the crash, the colors, they just looked gray. The joy was gone, replaced by a hollow ache. Looking at a blank canvas felt like looking at her empty chair at the kitchen table. I left the attic and shut the door. But the next day, I went back. I just stood there looking at the dried paints. That evening, Sophia found me in the library, staring into the cold fireplace. "You miss the colors," she said. I looked up, startled. She smiled, a small, knowing smile. The next morning, a brand new set of acrylics, brushes, and 3 small canvases were sitting on the kitchen table. I took them up to the attic. I set up the easel. I stared at the blank, white square. And I cried. I cried for my mother. I cried for Angelo Moretti. I cried for the life I had lost. And then I painted. It was terrible. It was angry. I smeared black and gray across the canvas, a storm of my own fear and grief. I threw it aside. I started another. I painted the view from the penthouse, the city, a prison of glittering, cold lights. I painted for days. I lost track of time. I painted until my fingers ached and my clothes were stained, and slowly, the anger faded. I started using color again, a deep, impossible blue for the sky, a warm, vibrant yellow for the sun. I was healing. The house was healing me. 2 weeks had passed since the night of the sniper. 2 weeks of silence. I hadn't heard from Dario. He had kept his promise. He was not here. Part of me was relieved, and part of me ached. I was in the garden, sketching the wild roses, when I felt it. A change in the air, the prickle on the back of my neck. I turned. He was standing on the edge of the lawn, watching me. He wasn't wearing a suit. The change was so profound it made me catch my breath. He wore dark jeans, boots, and a simple black Henley that clung to his shoulders. He looked wrong. He looked younger, more dangerous, and more human. "You look better," he said. His voice was the same, that low gravel, but it felt different without the armor of his suit. "I feel better," I said, closing my sketchbook. I was nervous. My hands were trembling, but not with fear. "Sophia says you are painting." I nodded. "It helps." The silence between us was heavy. He had not come here for a social call. "Stefano is making his move," he said, his eyes on the house, not on me. "He called a council meeting. He's trying to push my father out. He's using Angelo's death, twisting it. He says I am distracted, that I am weak." "Because of me," I whispered. He finally looked at me. "Yes." "I'm so sorry, Dario. It is not your fault. Isla, he started this. I will finish it." That night, Sophia made a stew, but she served it in the grand dining room and then disappeared. We were alone. A massive fireplace crackled, casting the room in a flickering, warm light. We ate in silence. The tension from the rooftop garden, from the near kiss, was back, amplified by the intimacy of the old house. After dinner, we moved to the library, sitting in front of another fireplace, a glass of wine in his hand, a cup of tea in mine. He was staring into the flames, his face a mask of shadows and light. "My mother loved this fireplace," he said, his voice so quiet I almost missed it. "She said the one in the dining room was for show. This one was for living." I waited. I knew he was on the edge of something. "I told you she built the garden in the city," he said. "She was out of place, a wildflower in a concrete box. My father, he loved her, but he owned her, like he owned everything." He took a long drink of his wine. I was 10. We were at a restaurant, one of my father's places, a meeting. It was always a meeting. His voice was flat, detached, like he was reading a report. There was an argument, shouting. It wasn't meant for us. It was another family. A crossfire. I held my breath. She didn't scream. She just pushed me under the table. She covered me with her body. He closed his eyes. I felt her. Jolt. Twice, like a shock. It was wet, warm. He was silent for a full minute. The only sound was the crackle of the fire. At the funeral, he continued, his voice rough, I cried. I was 10. My mother was gone. I cried. My father, he grabbed my arm. He pulled me into a coat room, and he slapped me, hard, across the face. He opened his eyes. They were hollow. He told me, Moretti men do not cry. We do not feel. We end what made us feel. He fixed my tie, he wiped my face, and we went back out. He looked down at his empty glass. I never cried again. Not for her, not for Angelo. My heart broke. It just split in two, for the little boy who was taught that grief was a sin, for the man who was drowning in it and had no idea how to swim. You were just a boy, I whispered. My voice was thick. I moved. I didn't think. I knelt on the thick rug in front of his chair. I reached out and laid my hand on his. His was cold, rigid, clenched around the glass. He looked at my hand, at my face, as if he'd never seen me before. He set the glass down, and then he moved. He didn't take my hand. He didn't pull me to my feet. He grasped my arms, his grip firm but not rough, and pulled me from the floor, across the small space between us and onto his lap. It was so fast, I gasped. I landed sideways, my legs tucked against his side, my hands braced on his shoulders. The world had just tilted. Ayla, he breathed. It was a warning. To me, to himself. You're allowed to grieve. Dario, I whispered. I lifted one hand, my fingers trembling, and touched his face. His skin was rough with stubble. He flinched, but he didn't pull away. He closed his eyes, leaning into my touch as if it were a brand. And then he kissed me. It was not gentle. It was not polite. It was a kiss of pure, desperate, agonizing relief. It was the sound a man makes when he's been underwater for too long and finally breaks the surface. His lips were soft, hungry, claiming mine with a raw desperation that stole my breath. One of his hands slid from my waist up my back, pulling me tighter against his chest until there was no space, no air between us. His other hand came up, his fingers tangling in my hair at the nape of my neck, holding my head still as he deepened the kiss. I melted, all the fear, the tension, the loneliness of the past weeks. It just evaporated. I kissed him back. My hand slid from his shoulder, around his neck, my fingers gripping the thick, soft material of his shirt. It was a long, slow, passionate embrace. It was the firelight on our faces. It was the taste of his wine. It was the sound of his heart hammering against my ribs. Or maybe it was mine. He traced the line of my jaw with his lips, his breath hot against my skin, sending a shiver through my entire body. He moved back to my mouth, a low groan rumbling in his chest. I felt not safe, not protected. I felt wanted. Then, just as suddenly, he broke it. He tore his mouth from mine, breathing hard. He didn't push me away, but he rested his forehead against mine. His eyes squeezed shut. His whole body was trembling. I can't, he gasped. The words were ripped out of him. Why? I whispered, my voice shaky. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. His eyes were dark, tormented, a war raging inside them. Not like this. Not like, what? Not when you're scared, he said, his voice rough. Not when you're my responsibility, when you're clinging to me because I'm the one keeping you alive. I'm not scared, I said, my voice gaining strength. Not of you. You should be. He gently lifted me from his lap and set me back on the rug. The cold air rushed into the space where I had been. It's not right. I'm not Angelo. I'm not the good one." He stood up, running a hand through his hair. He looked like a man about to break. "I have to go. Before I can't." He was gone. I heard the front door open and close. I heard the sound of a car engine. And then silence. I sat by the fire, my lips still tingling. He was wrong. I wasn't scared, and I wasn't clinging. I wanted him to stay. I woke up the next morning, and the house felt empty. The sun was shining, my paints were waiting, but the world was gray again. He was gone. I threw myself into my art. I painted him. I painted the firelight. I painted the memory of his kiss. 3 days passed, 3 days of agonizing silence. I was in the kitchen helping Sophia shell peas, the small television in the corner on, tuned to the Elbridge News. "We are breaking in with developing news." The reporter's voice was urgent. "An explosion has been reported at a warehouse in the Port District. Eyewitnesses report a massive fireball." I stopped. My hands froze. The camera zoomed in on a building, engulfed in black smoke. "The warehouse is believed to be a holding of the Moretti Syndicate," the reporter continued. "An anonymous source claims a high-level meeting was underway at the time of the explosion, possibly including syndicate head Dario Moretti." The bowl of peas slipped from my lap, scattering across the floor. Mr. Moretti, who has been rarely seen since the death of his brother, Angelo, was reportedly inside the building. His whereabouts are currently unknown. Missing. The word echoed in the kitchen. Stefano. He had made his move, while Dario was distracted, while he was with me. "Signorina," Sophia started, her face pale. "No," I said. "It was not a plea. It was a command." I stood up. The girl who had hidden in the alley was gone. The girl who had cowered in the penthouse was gone. The girl who had healed in the attic. She was here. "He's hurt," I said, my voice low and fierce. "He's hurt, or he's trapped, and it's because of me. Stefano, he thinks I'm Dario's weakness." I looked at Sophia, my eyes burning. "He's wrong." "You cannot go," Sophia pleaded. "It is not safe. Signore Moretti gave strict orders." "Dario is missing," I snapped. "His orders don't matter. I'm not hiding here while he... I'm not a ghost anymore. Sophia, I am not his weakness. I am going to be his alibi. I am going to be his witness." I walked to the door, grabbing my jacket. "Get me a car, or I will walk back to Elbridge." Sophia looked at me, her eyes wide. She saw the change. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She nodded once. "Rico will drive you." Rico drove like a demon, his knuckles white on the steering wheel of a beat-up, anonymous sedan. He didn't speak the entire 2-hour drive back to Elbridge, his face a mask of grim duty. The lush, fog-shrouded hills of the estate gave way to the grime and concrete of the city, and the shift was a physical blow. The peace I had found, the fragile healing, evaporated. The air in Elbridge was thick with menace. He didn't take me to my old apartment. He didn't take me anywhere I recognized. He pulled into a narrow alley behind a row of shops, the air smelling of sugar and old grease. "This is it," he said, his voice flat. "Go up the back stairs, 3rd floor, apartment 3B. Knock twice, then once." "Who is—" "Matteo," he cut in. "He's family. He's safe. Go." He didn't wait. He pushed me out and the car was gone before I had my feet fully under me. I was alone, back in the world that wanted me dead, with Dario's name a lead weight in my gut, missing. I found the stairs, a rusted metal cage bolted to the side of the brick building. I climbed, my footsteps echoing. Apartment 3B. I knocked, 2 sharp raps, a pause, 1 more. The door was pulled open instantly. He looked like Dario, but not. He had the same dark hair, the same strong Italian features, but his eyes were different. They were a warmer brown, and they held a spark of humor that Dario's lacked. He was built smaller, leaner, and he wore a faded university sweatshirt instead of a $3,000 suit. "You're Isla," he said, pulling me inside and locking the door behind me. His voice was lighter. "You look like hell." "I'm Mateo. Coffee?" The apartment was small, cluttered with books and what looked like computer parts. A small kitchen table was covered in laptops and hard drives. "Is he alive?" The words tore out of me before I could stop them. "The news? The bombing." Mateo's face darkened. He poured thick, black coffee into a mug and pushed it into my hands. "He's alive." The relief was so sudden, so total. I nearly dropped the cup. My knees buckled. "Whoa," he said, steadying me. "Sit. He's alive, but he's gone to ground. The bombing was Stefano." "I know," I whispered, sipping the scalding coffee. "He thinks I'm Dario's weakness. Dario came to see me, and then this." "That's just it," Mateo said, running a hand through his messy hair. "Stefano set the bomb. Yeah, but Stefano shouldn't have known about that warehouse. It was a clean site. Only Dario and 3 other people knew he was going to be there. One of them was Angelo. So he's out. That leaves 2. A second traitor," I breathed. "A second, deeper traitor," Mateo corrected. "Dario's in the wind right now, not just to hide from Stefano, but to find out which of his most trusted men set him up to die. He's hunting." I sank into the chair, the coffee mug warming my numb fingers. "He left me at the estate. He kissed me, and then he just left. He said he couldn't. Not when I was scared." Mateo leaned against the counter, his expression softening. "Isla, my cousin he's a block of ice packed around a furnace. He's been taught his entire life that emotion is a liability, that caring about someone gives your enemy a knife and a target." He looked me straight in the eye. "He didn't push you away because he didn't care. He pushed you away because he does. He was terrified, not of Stefano, of what you make him feel. He thought leaving you there, safe, was the only way to protect you. He thought he was your poison." My heart ached. The man I had seen, the one who had confessed his mother's death, the one whose kiss was a desperate plea for air. He hadn't been rejecting me. He'd been protecting me from himself. "I have to find him," I said. "You don't," Mateo said, gesturing to the table. "We bring him here, right now. He's a ghost. But we have something he needs, something his brother left him." He pointed to a silver laptop. "Angelo's. I've been trying to get into it for weeks. It's locked behind a serious encryption. But whatever is on this, Angelo died for it. I'm betting it's the key to killing Stefano." I sat down. My nursing textbooks were a world away. This was my new curriculum. I looked at the login screen. It was just a simple password prompt, no hint. "What have you tried?" I asked. "Everything," Mateo sighed. His fiancé's name, his dog's name, his birthday, his social, password, 123456, nothing. I thought about Dario. I thought about the rooftop garden, the story of his mother, the story he had shared at the estate. "Brothers share things," I said, thinking aloud, "but they also have secrets. Or shared pain. What about their mother?" "Tried her name, her birthday, the day she died," Mateo said, ticking them off. "No, not a date, not a name." I remembered Dario's face in the firelight, the raw agony. The restaurant, where she was killed. What was it called? Mateo's eyes widened. "Vesuvio, the old Vesuvio, on 9th. He typed Vesuvio. The screen flashed, access denied. "Damn it." "Wait," I said. He told me what his father said to him that day in the coat room." Mateo looked at me, his face pale. "He told you that?" "Moretti men don't cry," I whispered. I typed MORETTIMENDONTCRY. The screen flashed, access denied. "It's too long," Mateo said, frustrated. "No." I stared at the blinking cursor. What if it's not a sentence? What if it's a rule? His father's rule. My fingers moved, NOTEARS. Access granted. Matteo and I stared at the screen as files began to populate the desktop. My God. You're a genius, he breathed. No, I listened, I said, my voice trembling. Most of the files were photos, business ledgers, but one was different. It was a single, encrypted spreadsheet. This time, there was no password. Angelo must have left it open. We clicked it. It was simple, deceptively so. A list, just 2 columns. Column A was a series of dates, going back 3 years. Column B was a series of numbers, all in the 5- and 6-figure range. And at the top, a string of letters and numbers. It's a bank account, B, Matteo said, his voice electric. He pulled out his phone, typed in the string. He was a different person now, focused, intense, a shadow of his cousin. It's a Cayman Islands account, unregistered, a shell. Stefano's? It has to be, he said, already cross-referencing the dates. Look, this first payment, the day after a Moretti cargo shipment was accidentally lost in the harbor. This one, 2 days after a federal raid on a protected casino. Stefano was feeding information. Angelo was tracking it. He was tracking all of it. This was it. This was the proof. This was the motive for Angelo's murder. We have him, I whispered. We can end this. We just need to get this to Dario, Matteo said, and he needs to get it to the council. We worked for hours, making copies, backing up the file onto secure drives. We were wired on adrenaline and stale coffee, the first gray light of dawn beginning to stain the windows. I was at the sink, pouring the last of the sludge from the coffee pot, when I heard the sound at the door. It wasn't a knock. It was the sound of a key in the lock. Matteo was on his feet in an instant, a gun in his hand. I hadn't even seen him grab it. He moved to the side of the door, his body flat against the wall. The door opened. A man stumbled in. My heart stopped. It was Dario. He was not the man in the suit. He was not the man in the Henley. This was a man who had been dragged through hell. His face was covered in grime and blood. A long, stitched gash ran from his temple to his jaw, swollen and purple. He was missing his suit jacket. His white shirt was torn, stained with patches of dark, dried blood and mud. He was favoring his left side, his arm held tight against his ribs. But he was alive. He was standing. He was breathing. He looked at Matteo, nodded once, and then his eyes found me. He froze. The air left the room. His eyes, dark and exhausted, scanned me from head to toe. I saw the relief. I saw the exhaustion. And then I saw the rage. It was a cold, black fire that burned away everything else. Out! He said, his voice a low, terrifying growl. He was looking at Matteo. Dario, Matteo started. I said, get out! Matteo, a man who had just been holding a gun, looked at his cousin. He put the gun on the counter, looked at me with an apologetic wince, and walked out the door, closing it softly behind him. We were alone. What? Dario said, his voice vibrating with a fury so cold it burned. The hell are you doing here? He took a step toward me. I took a step back. The news, I said, my voice shaking. They said you were missing. They said you were dead. And you thought you'd what? He snarled. Come back? To the city? The one place I told you not to be? Do you have any idea what I've done to keep you safe? Do you have any idea what they will do to you if they find you? I was worried. My own fear, my own agonizing 3 days erupted. I thought you were dead, Dario. I thought Stefano had... What was I supposed to do? Sit in that house and paint while you were lying in a burning building? Yes, he roared. He slammed his good hand on the counter. The coffee pot jumped. That is exactly what you were supposed to do. Your only job was to stay safe. Your only job was to stay hidden. I am not one of your soldiers, I screamed, the tears I had refused to shed finally burning in my eyes. I am not a package to be hidden. You don't get to kiss me like that, to tell me about your mother, and then throw me away and expect me to not... to not care if you die. Care? He laughed. It was a broken, ugly sound. Caring is what gets you killed. Caring is what got Angelo killed. I didn't throw you away. Isla, I saved you. I put you somewhere he could not find you, and you just walked right back into the fire. He was in front of me now, close. He was breathing hard, the smell of gunpowder, blood and sweat rolling off him. He was terrifying. You're the one who lit the fire! I shoved his chest. It was like pushing a stone wall. You abandoned me. You ran. Just like you said, you ran because you were scared. You're a coward. His eyes went black. He grabbed me. His hands clamped down on my arms, his grip like steel. He hauled me against him, our bodies slamming together. His face was an inch from mine. A coward, he breathed, his voice a raw whisper. I have been hunting the man who betrayed me for 72 hours. I have not slept. I have not eaten. I have put 2 men in the ground, all to get back here, to get the proof I need to end this. All so I could one day, maybe, go back to that house, and you call me a coward. You left me, I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by the simple, staggering truth. He was here. He was alive. I left you, he said, his voice breaking, so I would not have to bury you. His gaze dropped to my mouth. And the argument, the anger, the fear, it all just combusted. It turned into something else. Something desperate and raw. He kissed me. It was not the slow, hesitant kiss from the estate. This was a storm. It was rough, bruising, and desperate. It was a kiss of anger, of relief, of pure, unadulterated need. His lips claimed mine, his hand sliding from my arm up into my hair, gripping the back of my head, holding me in place. I didn't resist. I met his force with my own. I gripped the front of his torn, bloody shirt, my knuckles brushing his ribs. He winced, but he didn't pull away. I kissed him back, pouring all my fear, my loneliness, my rage into it. He backed me up, his body a solid wall until I hit the kitchen counter. The edge dug into my back. He didn't stop. He broke the kiss only to trail his mouth. Open and hot down my jaw to the hollow of my throat, I gasped, my head falling back. His hands went to my waist, and he lifted me. I was light. He sat me on the counter, his body pressing between my knees. I was suddenly above him. I looked down at his ruined face, at the blood in his hair. My anger was gone. Only a deep, profound ache remained. I reached out, my hands trembling, and cupped his face. My thumbs traced the stitches, the dark bruise on his cheekbone. "You're real," I whispered. "You're alive." He closed his eyes, leaning into my touch like he had in the library. "Don't leave again," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Don't you dare leave me again." He looked at me. His dark eyes were stripped bare. The boss was gone. The soldier was gone. Only the man remained, broken and haunted. "Isla," he breathed. He kissed me again, and this time, it was different. The anger was gone. It was slow. It was deep. It was a promise. My legs wrapped around his waist, pulling him closer, as if I could absorb him, keep him safe inside me. He pulled back, his forehead resting against mine. "Matteo's room," he said, his voice rough. He didn't wait for an answer. He slid one arm under my legs, the other around my back, and lifted me from the counter. I weighed nothing to him. He carried me down the short hall into the small, messy bedroom. He kicked the door shut. He didn't turn on the light. The gray dawn filtering through the dirty window was enough. He set me down, but he didn't let me go. His hands framed my face. He just looked at me, memorizing me, as if I were the one who had been missing. He was trembling. The strong, controlled Dario Moretti was visibly shaking. He undid the buttons of my shirt, his fingers clumsy, rough. He wasn't trying to be seductive. He was unwrapping a wound. His thumbs brushed the skin over my collarbone, and I shivered. I reached for him. I pulled the ruined, blood-stiffened shirt from his waistband. He didn't stop me. I pushed it up, over his head, wincing as it pulled at the stitches on his face. His chest was a map of bruises, dark, ugly splotches of purple and black. His ribs were taped. My breath hitched. I traced the edge of the white tape. "Dario, you're hurt." "It's nothing," he breathed. He captured my hand, kissed my palm. "It's nothing." He pulled me to the bed. We sank onto the cheap comforter. The moment was fragile. It was two survivors clinging to a piece of driftwood. It was about life, about feeling anything other than fear and death. He kissed me, his hand tracing the line of my shoulder, his touch both rough and reverent. I clung to him, my hands exploring the hard planes of his back, the muscles knotted with tension, the bruises that proved he was real. It was a desperate, silent conversation. He whispered my name. It was not a command. It was a prayer, a surrender. He held me, his body covering mine, a familiar, protective weight, and in that small, dirty room, surrounded by the ghosts of his family and the threat of his enemies, we held on to the only real thing left, each other. Later, we lay tangled in the sheets, the morning sun now bright outside. His head was on my chest. I could feel his breath, slow and even against my skin. His arm was a heavy, possessive weight across my stomach. He was asleep, truly, deeply asleep. The first time, I realized he had probably let his guard down in maybe years. I watched him, tracing the stitches on his face with my fingertip. I had been his prisoner. Now. I didn't know what I felt. He woke slowly, his eyes open, and for a second, they were just brown. Not the flat, hard eyes of the boss, just a man. Then he realized where he was, who I was. He didn't pull away, he didn't apologize, he just held me tighter. "I dream," he said, his voice a low rumble against my ribs. "Sometimes, about a house, somewhere. Quiet, by the water, no city, no noise." He paused. "In the dream, I'm just a man. No name, no family. I'm building a boat, or fixing a fence, something with my hands, and the air is clean." He turned his head, looking up at me. His eyes were full of a terrible, aching sorrow. "But it's just a dream. Isla, it's not real. This is real." He touched the bruise on his ribs. "Angelo is real." "We can make it real," I said, my voice fierce. I told him about the laptop, no tears, the file, the bank account. I watched as the hope returned to his face. It was a slow sunrise. The exhaustion faded, replaced by that familiar, cold fire. But this time, it wasn't for me. It was for his brother. "A council meeting," he said, sitting up. He winced, his hand going to his ribs. "Stefano called an emergency meeting to nominate himself, to replace my father." He looked at me, and a slow, dangerous smile touched his lips. It was the first time I'd ever seen him smile. "He's planning his own coronation," Dario said. "He won't be expecting a funeral. We had a plan, we had the proof, we were going to end this." But across town, in a penthouse far grander than Dario's, Stefano Varelli was in a rage. Dario had survived. The warehouse was a failure. And a phone call had just confirmed his worst fear. "She's back," his man said. "The girl, she's back in the city. We think she's with Matteo and Moretti." Stefano crushed the glass in his hand. He didn't even feel the shards cut into his palm. "Find them," he hissed, the blood dripping onto his marble floor. "Find them both, and this time, finish it." "We had a plan. For 24 hours, we had a plan." Dario slept for 6 hours, a deep, healing sleep in Matteo's bed, his arm thrown over my waist as if he was afraid I'd dissolve. I stayed awake, watching the slow rise and fall of his bruised chest, listening to the city wake up outside. He was real. He was alive. The rest, I thought, we could fix. When he woke, he was the boss again, but a different kind. The ice was still there, but the furnace beneath it was burning for a purpose. Not just in grief. Mateo and I sat at the kitchen table, the decrypted file on the laptop screen between us. "The council meeting is tonight," Dario said, his voice rough. He had showered, and the gash on his face was a stark, angry red against his clean skin. He wore a fresh black t-shirt and jeans of Mateo's that were too tight on his shoulders. 8:00. At the Palazzo. Stefano thinks he's walking in to take my father's chair. He's walking into his own execution. "It's not enough to just kill him," Mateo said, wired on coffee. "You kill him without this." He tapped the screen. "And you're a usurper. The other families will smell blood. You have to prove it. To all of them." "I will," Dario said. He looked at me. "I need you to do something before the meeting." "What?" "Leave." My heart sank. "No, Dario, I'm not forever," he said, his voice firm. But he took my hand. His grip was warm. "Just for today. Stefano knows this apartment. He knows Mateo. He knows you're back. His men are hunting." He squeezed my hand. "Go to the art museum. Go to the public library. Be a ghost. Be a normal girl for 6 more hours. Take this." He handed me a simple, prepaid phone. "I'll call this number when it's safe. When it's over." I hated it. I hated being sent away. But I looked at his face, at the exhaustion and the new, hard resolve, and I knew this was not a negotiation. "Be safe," I whispered, my voice fierce. "You promised. No more leaving." "I'll see you tonight," he said. It was a vow. I left. I felt naked, walking out onto the Elbridge streets. Every car that slowed, every man who looked at me twice, made my skin crawl, but I did as he said. I walked. I went to the library, a place I hadn't been in months, and I sat in the history section, surrounded by the smell of old paper and floor wax. I pretended to read, but my mind was on Dario. At 4:00, my stomach was in knots. I hadn't eaten. I left the library and went to a small cafe. Not my cafe, but one like it. I just needed a normal cup of coffee. I sat at a small table by the window, watching the world go by, feeling like I was in a bubble. I'd been there for 10 minutes when the black van pulled up. It was silent. It just appeared. It double-parked, and the side door slid open. 2 men, not in suits. They wore jeans and dark jackets. They moved fast. I didn't even have time to scream. One was at the door, blocking it. The other one was at my table. He grabbed my arm, his fingers like a vice. "Don't make a sound, or I'll break it." He hauled me out of the chair. The other patrons just stared. It was so fast, so efficient, they didn't have time to process it. He dragged me out the door, into the van. A hood, rough and smelling of mildew, was shoved over my head. The door slammed, the van peeled out, I was gone. No one, I knew, had even gotten the license plate. Dario was strapping a ballistic vest under his shirt when Mateo's phone rang. Not Dario's, but his. "What?" Dario said, his voice flat. He was checking the magazine of his gun. Mateo's face went white. He was looking at his laptop. "Dario, the tracker." Dario froze. He had put a small GPS chip, the size of a coin, into the sole of my shoe before I left. A precaution. What about it? "It's moving," Mateo said, his voice tight. "Fast. It's on the highway, heading north, out of the city." The gun in Dario's hand did not waver. He did not shout. He did not curse. His face, his entire being, went utterly, terrifyingly still. It was the calm at the center of a nuclear bomb. "He took her," Dario whispered. The words were not for Mateo. They were for himself. He went, as Mateo would later tell me, berserk. It was not a screaming rage. It was a lethal, focused quiet. He grabbed his phone. His first call was not to his father. It was to a man named Sal. He has her. The mansion, north, I'm calling everyone. He hung up. His second call. Nico, Stefano has the girl. The old Varelli mansion. He just signed his own death warrant. Get your crew. He made 5 calls in 90 seconds. He was not asking for help. He was calling in every debt, every favor, every blood oath his family had ever earned. He was emptying the armory. He thinks he can use her against me, Dario said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp as he slid a knife into his boot. He thinks he can trade her. He thinks she's my weakness. He looked at Matteo, his eyes black, bottomless pits of pure, unadulterated violence. She's my excuse. The hood was ripped from my head. My eyes ached from the sudden light. I was in a room, a grand, cavernous, decaying room. A chandelier, heavy with cobwebs, hung crookedly from the ceiling. Furniture was draped in dusty white sheets, like a graveyard of ghosts, an abandoned mansion. "Welcome, little mouse," a voice drawled. Stefano Varelli was standing by a cold marble fireplace, pouring himself a drink. He was exactly as I pictured him, tall, impeccably dressed in a gray suit, with a mane of silver hair. He wore the ring, the lion with the crown. It glittered on his pinky. "I have to admit," he said, swirling the amber liquid, "you've been more trouble than I expected, for a barista." "Where am I?" I said, my voice hoarse. My hands were tied behind my back with a zip tie. "My grandfather's house," he said, gesturing around, "a monument to better times, before your boyfriend and his bleeding heart brother decided to ruin a perfectly good business arrangement." He took a sip. Dario. He's always been intense, even as a boy. All that fire, all that rage. His father tried to beat it out of him, only made it burn hotter. He smiled. A thin, cruel slash. And now, he has you, a little soft, flammable thing to pour all that heat into. "What do you want?" I demanded, pushing myself to my feet. "What do I want?" He laughed. "I wanted a clean transition. I wanted Angelo to back off. I wanted Dario to stay in his grief. But no one ever does what I want." He set his glass down and walked toward me. He was smooth, a panther. "Then, you," he said, "the witness, an annoyance. But you gave me an idea. You became leverage. You were the thing I could use to control Dario, to make him distracted." "The bombing," I breathed. "A beautiful failure," he sneered. "He's harder to kill than his brother. But no matter. I have a better weapon now." He stopped in front of me. "He thinks you're at a library. He thinks he's walking into a council meeting tonight to play a little file for the old men." He leaned in, his cologne thick and cloying. "He doesn't know that you're going to call him, you're going to tell him to come here, alone, with the file, or I am going to start sending him pieces of you, starting with your pretty, artistic fingers. The girl from the alley would have fainted. The girl from the penthouse would have cried." I looked him dead in the eye. "No," I said. He blinked, the smile faltering. "What did you say?" I said, "No, I won't call him. And you won't send him anything." He laughed, a short, sharp bark. "You're in no position to—" "You're afraid of me," I cut in, my voice low and steady. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. It was true. "Afraid?" he sputtered. "Of you?" "You're afraid of what I know," I said, the words coming faster, stronger. "You're afraid of that file. You're afraid of Dario. You went to all this trouble. A sniper, a bombing, kidnapping me. Because you are terrified. You're not a lion, Stefano. You're a rat in a nice suit, and you're scared. That makes you weaker than me." His face changed. The mask of civilized charm dissolved. His eyes went flat, his lip curled back. He raised his hand. It was a blur. He was going to strike me. I braced myself. I didn't flinch. I didn't close my eyes. The world exploded. It wasn't a sound. It was a force. The windows on the far side of the room, They didn't shatter, they disintegrated. A concussive blast threw me backward off my feet. Shouts, gunfire, not one gun, a dozen, a war. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard a voice, a roar. It wasn't a word, it was just a name. Stefano. Dario. I scrambled behind an overturned sofa, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. Men were pouring in through the shattered windows. Dario's men. They were in black tactical gear. They moved low, fast, professional. The gunfight was deafening. It was short, brutal, and loud. Glass was breaking. Wood was splintering. I saw Dario, and he was not a man. He was a force of nature. He moved through the chaos, a gun in each hand. He wasn't taking cover. He was advancing. He was a hunter. He was the angel of death, and his face was a mask of pure, cold, righteous fury. He was moving toward Stefano, who was scrambling back, firing wildly. "Dario," I screamed. He heard me. His head snapped toward my voice. His eyes found me. Just for a second, relief. That second cost him. One of Stefano's men, hiding behind a pillar, got a clear shot. I saw it. I saw the puff of dust from Dario's side. I saw him jolt. That same awful word, the word he had used for his mother. He didn't go down. He grunted, a deep, pained sound. He turned, fired twice, and the man behind the pillar collapsed. Dario stumbled, just for a beat. He put a hand to his side. It came away black with blood. He didn't stop. He kept walking toward Stefano, who was now trapped in the doorway of what looked like a library. "It's over! Stefano!" Dario's voice boomed, cutting through the last of the gunshots. The room went silent. Save for the moans of the wounded, Dario cornered him. I got to my feet, my hands still tied, and ran to the doorway. I had to see. Dario was in the library. Stefano was against a desk, his gun empty. His hands raised. Dario was leaning against the doorframe, his left side soaked, a pool of blood forming at his feet, but his gun was steady. You're bleeding," Stefano stammered, his eyes wide. "I am," Dario breathed. "But you're dying." He didn't shoot. He pulled out his phone, the one I had seen him take. He fumbled with it, his bloody fingers slipping, and turned on the camera. He propped it on a bookshelf, facing them. "The council," Dario panted, "is going to want to hear this. They are going to want to know why." "Dario, we can make a deal." Stefano pleaded. The mask was gone. The rat was cornered. "No more deals." Dario raised his gun. "Tell them, why did you kill my brother?" He was weak," Stefano shouted, his voice cracking. "He was sentimental. He was going to ruin us, all of you, with his morals." "He was investigating you," Dario growled. "You were stealing. You were selling us out." It was business," Stefano screamed. It was just business. He wouldn't listen." "So you had him executed," Dario said, his voice flat. "In an alley, like a dog. My brother." "Yes," Stefano shrieked, all pretense gone. "Yes, and I'd do it again, and I'll kill you, and I'll kill her." He saw his opening. Dario was fading. The phone was recording. His gun hand was steady, but his body was slumping. Stefano lunged. He didn't go for the gun. He went for Dario. He was bigger, and Dario was wounded. He slammed into him, grabbing for his throat. Dario grunted, the gun firing into the ceiling as they crashed against the wall. I screamed. My hands were tied. I couldn't do anything. I looked around, frantic. Beside the fireplace, a set of heavy iron tools, and beside that, a thick, rusted chain. It must have been for a log basket. I didn't think. I ran. I grabbed the chain. It was heavy. So heavy. Stefano had Dario against the wall. He was winning. Dario was weak from blood loss. "I will end you." Stefano grunted, his fingers digging into Dario's throat. I swung the chain. I threw it, more than swung it, all my weight, all my fear, all my rage. The heavy iron links wrapped around Stefano's legs. He stumbled. He let go of Dario, roaring in surprise, and pitched forward. It was all Dario needed. He shoved Stefano off him. He raised his gun. He didn't hesitate. Pop, pop, pop. 3 shots, a center mass. Stefano's eyes widened. He looked down at his chest. He looked at me. He collapsed. He hit the floor and did not move again. For Angelo, silence. The only sound in the entire ruined mansion was Dario, gasping for air. He slid down the wall, leaving a long, thick smear of red, and landed in a sitting position, his gun clattering from his numb fingers. And then, sirens. Not one, a dozen. They were close. They were here. My tips. From Matteo's apartment, I had been sending them all day. My location from the cafe, the license plate of the van. I'd felt it with my fingers, embossed on the inside. Suspicions, names, a breadcrumb trail. Just in case. I had sent the final tip, the mansion's address, from the prepaid phone Dario gave me, just as the van stopped. The police. Dario looked at me. His face was pale, waxy, his eyes losing focus. Isla, he panted. Run, go, out the back, the trees, the police. They can't find you. Here. He was still trying to protect me. I ran right to him. I fell to my knees in the pool of his blood. I'm not leaving you. I fumbled with the zip tie, trying to get it on the sharp edge of a broken table. It wouldn't break. Dario's hand, covered in his own blood, came up. He pulled the knife from his boot. He sawed through the plastic, his hand shaking violently. I was free. I ripped his shirt open, the vest. The bullet had found a gap under his arm, in his side. It was bad. It was so bad. I was a nursing student. I knew what arterial bleeding looked like. No, I whispered, pressing both my hands to the wound. The blood was hot, gushing between my fingers. It's okay, he whispered. His eyes were on my face. You're safe. You're safe. Don't you dare, I sobbed, the tears I hadn't shed for Stefano now streaming down my face. Don't you dare die on me. Dario Moretti, I won't let you. He collapsed, his head lolled, his body going limp. He was falling, and I caught him. I pulled him into my lap, his head cradled against my chest, my hands still pressed, uselessly, against the hole in his side. Help! I screamed at the top of my lungs, at the ghosts in the mansion, at the police cars now screeching to a halt outside. Somebody help! He's bleeding out! Help me! I looked down at his face. His eyes were closed. He was so pale. I bent my head, my lips to his ear, my tears dripping onto his bloody face. You don't get to die, I whispered, my voice a broken, desperate plea. You hear me? You promised you wouldn't leave. The world, which had been a chaotic roar of gunfire and sirens, narrowed to a single, rhythmic, agonizingly slow beep. The hospital was a different kind of prison. It was sterile, white, and smelled of antiseptic and floor wax. It was a place of quiet, clinical terror. Dario survived. He was in surgery for 7 hours. The bullet, a 9mm, had missed his femoral artery by less than a centimeter, but it had torn through his side, shattering 2 ribs and nicking his spleen. He had bled, a lot. For the first 3 days, he was in a coma, a pale, still figure against the stark white sheets, a web of tubes and wires connecting him to the machines that beeped and sighed, breathing for him, living for him. I never left. The police had processed me. I was a witness, a victim. I told them what I saw. I told them Stefano Varelli had kidnapped me, that he had confessed to killing Angelo Moretti, that he had tried to kill Dario. I left out the parts about the file, the council, the second traitor. The recording from Dario's phone, which Matteo had retrieved, was edited and anonymously. It found its way to the Elbridge Police Department. Stefano Varelli, the official report said, was a disgraced capo killed in a police shootout while resisting arrest for the murder of Angelo Moretti. Dario Moretti was a victim, shot in the crossfire. It was clean. Matteo had arranged it. He had also arranged the private room, the best surgeon, and the 2 guards outside Dario's door. Men who were loyal to him, not to the old guard. I sat in the uncomfortable vinyl chair beside his bed. I was still wearing my clothes from the mansion, stained with Dario's blood. I hadn't slept. I just watched. I watched the steady rise and fall of his chest. On the second day, a nurse, a kind woman with tired eyes, gently forced me into an adjoining room to shower. She brought me clean, gray scrubs to wear. I came back. I became his nurse. Not officially, but I was there. I read to him. I didn't have my books, so Matteo brought me a stack from a hospital gift shop. Bad thriller novels. I read them aloud, my voice a low, steady drone, just to fill the silence, just to chase away the rhythmic beeping. When the nurses weren't looking, I would brush his dark hair back from his forehead. It was soft, free of the product he usually wore. I would hold his hand. It was large, calloused, and uncharacteristically still. "You're not allowed to go," I would whisper to him, my voice raw. "You promised. You don't get to leave." On the 4th day, his eyelids flickered. I was on my feet in an instant, my hand on his arm. "Dario?" His brow furrowed. He groaned, a low, pained sound. His eyes opened. They were blurry, unfocused. They scanned the ceiling, the tubes. It's okay," I stammered, my heart hammering. You're in the hospital. You're safe." His eyes found me. They focused. The confusion cleared, replaced by recognition. He tried to speak. It was a dry, rasping sound. I grabbed the cup of water, the small sponge on a stick, and wet his lips. He swallowed. He tried again. His voice was a bare whisper, a ghost of his gravelly tone. "Ila, my name. Not where am I, not what happened, just my name." I burst into tears. I collapsed into the chair, my head on his bed, and just sobbed. All the fear, the tension, the agonizing weight, it all came undone. I felt his hand, weak and trembling, land in my hair, just resting there, a light, shaky weight. "Safe," he whispered, and then he was asleep again. His recovery was slow, grueling. There were 2 more surgeries, infections, fevers. He was a man made of ice and fire, but his body was only human. He fought. He fought with the same silent, stubborn fury he had used on Stefano. And I stayed. While he healed, the Moretti syndicate imploded. Matteo, armed with the unedited video, the full spreadsheet, and the power of Dario's name, had called the council meeting. Dario was not present, but his proxy. Matteo laid out the truth. The betrayal of Stefano, the murder of Angelo, the rot, the second traitor, a man named Petrucci, who had been one of Dario's own lieutenants, the one who knew about the safe house. It was a cleansing, a purge. When Dario was finally strong enough to sit up, a week later, he held his own meeting from his hospital bed. The old men, the capos of the families, came to him one by one. They came to the antiseptic-smelling room, their expensive suits looking out of place, and they bent. I waited outside. I heard the low murmur of voices. When Matteo came out, he looked tired and older. "It's done," he said. "What's done?" "The council. They voted. They've restructured. They offered Dario his father's chair. Full control." My heart sank. Of course. He had won. He had avenged his brother. He had consolidated power. He was the boss, the king, the dream of a house by the water. It was just that, a dream. He said no, Matteo said, a small, stunned smile on his face. I looked at him. What? He refused it. He told them. He told them the cycle of blood ended with him, with Angelo. He said the old way. It was broken. It was time for something new. Matteo ran a hand through his hair. He gave it to me. He told them. I was the head. I was the future. I was the good one, like Angelo. But what about him? I whispered. He's out, Matteo said. He kept the house, the estate, and the penthouse, for what it's worth. But he's out. He's just Dario Moretti. No title. I walked back into the room. He was sitting up, pale, his side heavily bandaged. He looked lighter. The crushing weight of his name, his family, his past. It was gone. He looked at me. He didn't smile, but his eyes were clear. So, I said, my voice trembling, just Dario Moretti, huh? Just Dario, he whispered. He held out his hand. I took it. Time moved forward. Spring arrived. The city of Elbridge thawed. I went back to school. I walked back into Elbridge Community College, my backpack on. It felt strange, like a life I had lived 100 years ago. My professors were baffled. I had vanished. I told them. A family emergency, a long, complicated one. They let me back in. But I had to work. I worked 3 times as hard. I lived in a new apartment, a clean, safe, one-room place Matteo had arranged. I studied. I went to clinicals. I learned to draw blood, to check vitals, to hold a dying patient's hand. I was healing. Dario healed, and too, when he was at the estate, the one his grandmother had owned. He was walking. He was, as Sophia reported on the phone, quiet. We didn't see each other. It was an unspoken agreement. I had to finish my life. He had to figure out how to start his. But every Friday, a small package would arrive. Sometimes it was a book I needed for class. Sometimes it was a bag of the coffee I liked. Once, it was a single, perfect painted canvas, a small, postcard-sized painting of the garden on the roof. He was painting. The graduation was in May. The sun was bright, the air warm. I sat in a sea of my fellow students, a sea of navy blue gowns and flat, silly caps. My name was called Isla Marin. I walked across the stage. I shook the dean's hand. I took my diploma, the rolled-up piece of paper that represented everything, the end of my old life, the beginning of a new one. As I walked off the stage, I scanned the crowd, hundreds of cheering, proud families. And in the back, leaning against an oak tree, half hidden in the shadow, him. He wasn't in a suit. He wore dark jeans and a gray Henley, just like at the estate. His arms were crossed. He was no longer the broken man from the hospital. He was solid. He was, whole. He was watching me. Our eyes met across the lawn. He didn't clap. He didn't cheer. He just nodded. Once, a small, proud, private gesture. And he smiled, the real smile, the one I had seen in Matteo's kitchen. I clutched my diploma. My heart was going to beat out of my chest. When the ceremony was over, when my friends were hugging and crying, he was gone. I knew where to go. The penthouse. He still had the key. I had mine. I took the elevator up, the ding no longer making my stomach clench. It was just a sound. I walked through the sterile, white apartment. It was empty, just a room. I went up the stairs to the roof. He was there. He was standing at the glass wall, looking out at the city. The sun was setting, the sky a blaze of apricot and violet. He had been waiting. I walked up behind him, my footsteps silent on the stone path. "You came," he said, not turning. "You were there," I replied. He turned. He looked at peace, the hollow, haunted look in his eyes. It was gone. He looked at the diploma in my hand. "Congratulations, nurse." I smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Moretti." We stood in the comfortable silence. the city lights beginning to glitter below us, the same place, the same time. But we were different. We were new. I broke the silence. I looked at him, a tease in my voice. So, am I still under your protection? He looked at me. His dark eyes were soft in the twilight. He stepped closer, until there was no space between us. He lifted his hand, not to my face, not to my hair, but to my chin, tilting my head up. Always, he whispered. He kissed my forehead, a slow, reverent kiss, a blessing. Then he lowered his head, and his lips found mine. It was not the desperate, near kiss of our first time here. It was not the rough, angry, relieved kiss from Mateo's kitchen. This was a promise. It was slow, it was deliberate, it was a claiming. It was a kiss that said, "You are mine, and I am yours, and there is no more running." It was quiet, and it was deep, and it tasted like forever. He pulled back, resting his forehead against mine. "I bought a house," he whispered. "I know," I said, "the dream. It needs work, a lot of work. The fences are broken, the roof leaks." "I know," I said again, smiling. "And it's far away from all of this. It's quiet." "Dario," I said, pulling his head down, and I kissed him again. "I'm not afraid of quiet." We left Elbridge. We left the city of ghosts and glass prisons. The farmhouse was perfect. It was 2 hours away, nestled in rolling hills. It did need work. The paint was peeling, the floors creaked, and the fences were, in fact, broken. We moved in with 2 suitcases and a box of paints. And we lived. Our days were slow. They were quiet. I got a job at the small local clinic, 2 days a week, enough to be a nurse, enough to help. Dario, he worked with his hands. He fixed the roof. He rebuilt the fences. He bought an old broken-down boat, and he was fixing it. We cooked. We ate dinners at a real wooden table. We painted. He wasn't bad. He painted landscapes, big, angry, beautiful skies. I painted people. I painted him. We were healing. The scars were still there. His side was a roadmap of ruined tissue. My mind still, sometimes, went back to the alley, but we were not alone. We were quiet. One night, it was winter. A fire was roaring in the fireplace, the one in the living room, the one for living. We were on the floor, on a thick rug. I was leaning back against his chest, his arms wrapped around me, a book open in my lap. He was just holding me, breathing in my hair. I closed the book. I took his hand, his large, calloused, scarred hand, the one that had held a gun, the one that had held me. I turned it over. I kissed his palm. And then I lifted it. I pressed it flat against my stomach, against the soft wool of my sweater. He tensed. He didn't understand. I held his hand there. "It's early," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Just a little. It's very early, but I thought you should know." I felt his body go completely, utterly still behind me. He wasn't breathing. "Isla," he whispered, his voice. It was afraid. I turned in his arms to face him. I took his face in my hands. We're pregnant." His eyes. I watched them. I watched the man who had been taught no tears. I watched the boss, the soldier, the survivor. His eyes widened and they filled. He didn't say anything. He looked at me. A look of awe, of terror, of a joy so profound it was painful. And then he moved. He slid from the sofa. He dropped to his knees, on the floor, in front of me. He put his hands, both of them, on my stomach. He was shaking, his whole body. He bent his head. He kissed my stomach, right through the sweater, a long, trembling, reverent kiss. He stayed there, his forehead pressed against me. I put my hands in his hair. "Dario?" He looked up. A tear, a single tear, was rolling down his cheek, past the scar. "You gave me peace," he whispered, his voice thick, broken. "Isla, you gave me peace, and now you've given me everything." He rose up, kneeling, and pulled me into his arms. He buried his face in my neck, and I held him. I held this strong, broken, beautiful man, and I held him while he cried for his mother, for his brother, for us. The final scene, our final scene. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was summer. A warm night, the farmhouse was painted. The fences were fixed. We were dancing, barefoot, in the backyard, under a simple string of white lights Dario had hung between two old oak trees. There was no music, just the sound of crickets. His hand was on my back, my head was on his chest. I was very pregnant, and we just swayed back and forth. He kissed the top of my head. I smiled, my eyes closed. We were safe. We were quiet. And finally, we were free. Thank you so much for listening to our story. It means the world. We would love to know where you're listening from, so please drop a comment and let us know. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to Mafia Romance Stories for more. And finally, share your thoughts in English. We read every one. Until next time.